Life of Erza Scarlet, Fairy Tail. Erza Scarlet is an S-Class mage of the Fairy Tail Guild, wherein she's a member of Team Natsu. She also served as the guild's 7th guildmaster during Makarov's absence in 792. Welcome to the Amagi. In today's video, we're going over the life of Erza Scarlet. Before we begin, we publish a new video every day, so be sure to subscribe to our channel and ring the bell to get notified about our latest videos. The Amagi's reach stretches beyond just this channel, so if you're a fan of us, please consider subscribing to our other channels and following us on all of our social media accounts. Help us reach our goal of passing 100,000 followers on all of our accounts by the end of the year. And with that out of the way, let's get into the video. Background. The daughter of Irene Belsarion and the general of a foreign country, Erza was conceived 400 years ago prior to the Dragon King festival, but was kept from growing in Irene's womb by magical means. She remains unborn during Irene's 700-year-long physical stint as a dragon, and was finally born after her mother, who regained her human shape courtesy of Zeref, tried to become a true human again by enchanting herself onto her unborn child. When this failed, Irene considered Erza to be worthless and discarded her in the back alleys of Rosemary Village. Erza remained in the village and grew up there alongside Kagura and Shimon. When Rosemary Village was attacked by a Zeref-following cult, Erza managed to save Kagura from capture by hiding her inside a crate, but got caught herself as a result. She was enslaved by the cult and forced to build the Tower of Heaven, a structure developed for the purpose of resurrecting the Dark Mage Zeref. She was imprisoned together with several other slaves, most of them being children. Among these children were Jalal Fernandez, Sho, Simon, Wally Buchanan, and Miliana. While they were asking each other for their names, she said that her name was just Erza, so Jalal decided to give her the surname Scarlet after her scarlet hair so they would never forget it. Despite the harsh conditions of her enslavement and labor, Erza became close friends with the other children. She also formed a strong bond with Rob, an elderly mage from the Fairy Tail Guild, who taught her about magic and his guild. One day in 776, Sho came up with a plan for the 11-year-old Erza and all their friends to escape from the tower. They were unfortunately caught by the guards, who decided to send the escape's mastermind to the tower's disciplinary chamber, while the rest would be deprived of food for 3 days. Seeing how fearful Sho was, Erza prepared to take the blame herself, but Jalal announced himself as the mastermind instead. However, the guards reasoned that Erza was the one responsible and sent her to the disciplinary chamber, where she was tortured to the brink of death and lost her right eye. Jalal rescued her, but was captured soon after. Finally fed up with their torment, Erza staged a revolt against their captors so they could escape and save Jalal. The revolt appeared to be successful at its inception, until the tower's mages arrived to repress the slaves, causing most of the other slaves to retreat. During the attack, Erza watched in horror as her friend Shimon's lower jaw was blasted off by a magical attack, while Rob sacrificed himself to defend Erza from another mage's attack. In her rage, Erza's latent magic power was activated for the first time, and she used it to turn all of the discarded weapons and tools around her against the guards, finishing the revolt. As the other slaves boarded ships meant to ensure their freedom, she reunited with Jalal but discovered that he had changed. The kind and compassionate boy she knew him to be was suddenly twisted and violent, using magic to slaughter the defenseless guards around them. Jalal had been possessed by what he claims to be the spirit of Zeref, and decided that the only way for them to attain true freedom was to complete the Tower of Heaven and revive Zeref. Erza refused to help him, prompting Jalal to cast her out of the tower by herself, only letting her live because she helped take care of all the guards who would have opposed him. Before letting her escape, Jalal told Erza to keep the Tower of Heaven a secret from the government, as well as to never return to the tower, threatening to destroy the tower and kill everyone in it, including their friends if she disobeyed. After washing up on the shores of Fiore, Erza made her way to and joined the Fairy Tail Guild. She habitually began to wear armor and acted distant from the other members. After Gray, who tried picking fights with the reclusive Erza, saw her crying by herself and questioned why, she began to open up to her guildmates more. Around this time, Fairy Tail's master Makarov brought Erza to see poor Liusica, who gave her an artificial eye to replace the one she lost. With her eye healed, Erza shed tears of joy, which only came out of her real left eye, though Erza didn't mind as she said she had already shed half of her tears. When Mira Jane first joined the guild, Erza tried to welcome the girl and commented that she had heard about her strength. However, the takeover mage left the building without speaking a word. As the years passed, Erza became more and more strict until she could be called the guild's disciplinarian. She took responsibility for breaking up fights between Gray and Natsu. In the year 780, Erza passed Fairy Tail's annually held S-Class Mage promotion trial, becoming the youngest member of the guild to do so at 15 years of age. Eisenwald Arc. While returning home from a mission to slay a colossal horned monster, bringing its horn decorated and given to her by the locals as a souvenir, Erza stops at a pub where she overhears a group of mages discussing a sealed magic called Lullaby, which one of the members, Kageyama, claiming he will be able to break the seal. She doesn't give them much thought until she hears Kageyama mention Erigor, the Death God, and ace of the Dark Guild, Eisenwald. Too late to act against them in time, she decides to enlist Natsu and Gray to help her fight Eisenwald and discover what the lullaby is, as well as what they intend to do with the spell. She returns to the guild with the intention of discussing the matter with Makarov, only to learn that he's away at a meeting with the other guildmasters in the country. After ritualistically berating her guildmates for the poor conduct, she tells Natsu and Gray to accompany her on her mission, shocking the entire guild with the idea that she has just formed the strongest team in the history of Fairy Tail. They're joined by Lucy, the guild's newest recruit, who's requested by Mira Jane to keep Natsu and Gray from bickering behind Erza's back. Before setting out the next day, Natsu challenges Erza to fight him after they return, which she accepts. Erza discusses her mission with Lucy and Gray of her mission on the train ride to Onibus. Natsu, however, is left in the dark since Erza knocks him unconscious to ease his motion sickness. They're so caught up with their discussion that they accidentally leave Natsu on the train, prompting Erza to temporarily stop the train via its emergency stop signal and chase after him on a borrowed magic four-wheeled car. Upon retrieving Natsu, he says that he briefly fought with Kageyama, who had escaped, prompting Erza to berate him for not stopping him and paying attention to their discussion. Natsu further explains that the mage was holding a skull-shaped flute, which Lucy recognizes as the lullaby, a mass murder curse that kills anyone who listens to its music. Desperate to stop Erigor from playing the lullaby, Erza and the others rush for the nearby town of Oshibana, where they find Eisenwald waiting for them inside the local train station. Before escaping with the lullaby, Erigor claims to use the lullaby to kill everyone in the city. Erza sends Natsu and Gray to chase after him while she fights against the members of Eisenwald, easily taking them all out at once. Having used up much of her magic power in the fight and on the magic four-wheeled car, she goes outside to evacuate the citizens gathered around the station. However, Erigor reappears and casts a wind wall around the station, trapping Erza inside. She interrogates the defeated Eisenwald members in the station and realizes that Eisenwald's true target is Clovertown, where Makarov and the other guildmasters have gathered. Remembering Kageyama's power to dispel magic, she and Gray find Kageyama after he's defeated by Natsu and demands that he lift the wind wall, but he's stabbed in the back by fellow Eisenwald member Karaka to keep him quiet. Fortunately, Lucy acquires the key for the celestial spirit, Virgo, from Happy, allowing the team to burrow beneath the wind wall and escape. Before doing so, Natsu brings Kageyama, not wanting him to die. Natsu sets out to fight Erigor with Erza, and the others chase after him on another magic four-wheeler with Kageyama in tow. By the time they catch up, they find that Natsu has successfully defeated Erigor. However, Kageyama steals the lullaby and hijacks the vehicle, setting off for Clovertown to kill the guildmasters himself. Erza and the others chase after him, but by the time they find him at the Master's meeting hall, they witness Makarov persuading Kageyama to stop his plan. Suddenly, the lullaby comes to life and unveils the demon that was sealed inside the flute. Together with Natsu and Gray, Erza battles and destroys the demon, reverting the lullaby into an ordinary flute, but destroying the entire meeting hall in the process. Shortly after returning to the guild, Erza keeps her promise to fight Natsu, holding their battle in front of the Fairy Tail Guild Hall. Before the match can be concluded, however, a messenger appears and arrests Erza on behalf of the Magic Council for the damages caused during the battle against Eisenwald. As she's escorted to her trial, she encounters the council member Seagrain, who reveals that the council is using her as a scapegoat to display their authority. Seagrain once again reminds Erza to keep the Tower of Heaven a secret from the council before leaving to oversee the trial. During the trial, Natsu barges into the courtroom while dressed as Erza and tries to pass himself off as her in an attempt to save her, not realizing that the trial is a formality and she wouldn't be punished. As a result, the two are imprisoned together for the night. Although angry that Natsu's rampage had ruined her chance to return home for the day, she warmly admits that his gesture did make her happy. Sub-Zero Emperor Leonarch. After returning to Fairy Tail, Erza is challenged by Natsu but quickly hits him with her sword, knocking him out. The guild members, besides Makarov, then all fall asleep when Mystagon walks in to take a job, waking up soon after he leaves. After Natsu, Lucy, and Gray steal a S-Class job and go to Galuna Island, Erza goes after them to stop them and return them to Fairy Tail. She hijacks a pirate ship to go to the island. Erza arrives and saves Lucy from Sherry Blendy and detains Lucy and Happy for their breaking of the guild's rules. The next day, Gray walks into one of the Galuna Islanders' tents to find Erza sitting with a tied-up Lucy and Happy. Erza tells Gray to leave the island since they broke the rule of taking an S-Class job. Gray refuses and tells Erza to do whatever she wants, but it won't stop him. Shocked that someone actually stood up to her, Erza has a slight change of heart and decides to punish them after they finish the mission. Erza slices Toby to stop the moon drip from releasing Deliora, but doesn't make it in time. However, Deliora is found to have already died. Erza interrupts their victory by reminding everyone their mission hasn't been complete, as they haven't saved the villagers from the curse. Once back at the village, Erza is the one who figures out the secret of the villagers and uses her giant armor to throw a spear to the moon with the help of a very motivated Natsu. With this, they destroy a layer created by the Moondrip, revealing that all the villages were originally monsters who were able to turn to humans and not the other way around, and that the Moondrip layer was simply causing their confusion. She then leads the team off the island, only taking the Celestial Spirit Key as a reward, and not the money. She then reminds Natsu and company that despite finishing the mission, they are all going to get punished. Once everyone returns to Magnolia, they're surprised to find the guild completely trashed. Phantom Lord arc. Erza and the others return from Galuna Island only to find that the guild has been attacked by Phantom Lord. Later, Erza goes to Lucy's apartment with Team Natsu and explains the power of Phantom Lord, and that they have a Dragon Slayer as well. Shortly after, Shadow Gear is attacked as well, leading to a guild war between Fairy Tail and Phantom Lord. Fairy Tail assaults Phantom Lord's guild, but after the Sucker Punch defeat of Makarov by Arya, Erza demands the guild to retreat. As Erza takes a shower, blaming herself for Makarov's defeat, the Walking Guild of Phantom Lord attacks Fairy Tail with its magical convergent cannon, Jupiter. Erza stops the first shot with her adamantine armor, but loses consciousness. Later, Erza reappears when Natsu is being beaten by Arya. Erza, angered by what he did to the Master, is able to quickly defeat him. As she collapses, she implores Natsu to protect Lucy and the guild from Jose and Gajeel, as his power will one day surpass even hers. Gray and Elfman find Erza, but before they can aid her, Jose himself appears before them. He quickly defeats Elfman and Gray. After Erza fights him briefly, Jose remembers how Erza took the Jupiter cannon head-on, and asks her how she was able to do it. Erza replies her love for her friends makes her who she is, aka Nakama power. Jose laughs and finds Erza to be a person worth killing. After Natsu beats Gajeel, she reminds Jose that he lost the war because he didn't calculate Natsu's destructiveness into his plans. Erza then berates Jose's reasons for attacking Fairy Tail and defends Lucy. Jose soon defeats Erza but is saved by a recovered Makarov, who finally finishes Jose with Fairy Law. As she helps to rebuild the guild, Erza follows Gray and Natsu to Lucy's apartment only to find her not home. They all read Lucy's letters and find a note from her claiming she's going back to her home. After Erza, Natsu, Gray, and Happy arrive at the Heartfilia concert, they see Lucy, who just came back from telling her father she will never stay and to leave Fairy Tail alone. Team Natsu all share a laugh, and afterwards everyone's impressed by how much land Lucy's dad owns. Loki arc. Erza is sent to help a theater in trouble. It's here she reveals her love for the theater and the dramatic arts. She signs the others up in a play to help the owner recover from his tragedy, wherein most of his actors and actresses had quit. Erza spends a long time and effort practicing for her role as the prince. During the play, Erza gets stage fright and forgets most of her lines when it comes to performing her part, to which in some moments she improvises to fill up sentences in her dialogue. Later though, she gets too deep into her character as she cuts Lucy's clothes up on stage. The team ends up destroying the theater due to their recklessness, but still get a standing ovation, successfully making Rabian's play entertaining. Team Natsu finishes up a job and runs into Loki shortly after. After Lucy thanks him for finding her keys, he quickly runs off though. When Loki's missing from the guild the next day, Erza searches for him with Natsu. Tower of Heaven arc. Erza is one of the members invited by Loki to go with Team Natsu to an expensive resort. At the beach, Erza has a quick flashback of her slave life at the Tower of Heaven. When she wakes up from the daydream, Lucy invites her to go to the resort's casino. While at the casino, Lucy and Erza are playing cards when one of Erza's childhood friends, Sho, steps in to rotate the dealer position. Suddenly, the casino lights turn off due to Shimon's spell, then comes back on with Sho behind Erza, telling her that he can use magic as well, and demonstrates this by trapping everyone in the casino inside playing cards. Another friend of Erza, Miliana, appears from behind Lucy and ties her up using magic ropes. Feeling insulted, Sho tells Erza that they were her friends once too, until she betrayed them. The group tells Erza that they are here to take her back home. Erza, pleading for Wally to stop, gets shot in the back by Wally's tranquilizer shot. Before their departure, Wally gives Miliana a sleeping Happy as a gift. Sho is excited to reveal that Erza will be returning to the Tower of Heaven, where Jalal is waiting. Erza later wakes up in a ship on the way to the tower, bound by Miliana's Nekosoku tube. Sho then appears and yells at her for betraying Jalal. Erza then has another short flashback, revealing her imprisonment with Jalal and the rest of her old friends. As Erza arrives at the tower, she's thrown into prison. Sho tells her she will stay there until the ceremony starts tomorrow. He then tells her that she'll be the sacrifice for paradise. Erza tells Sho not to use the R system to resurrect the Black Mage Zeref because of the consequences it will bring to the magic world. Erza then brings Sho to his knees by kicking him in the face and then sets out to search for Jalal. Erza fights her way through some guards, asking where Jalal is, and eventually comes across Natsu and co, who has also teamed up with Juvia Luxor. Although she is surprised to see them, she tells them to go back. Natsu refuses, one reason being because Miliana has Happy. Erza apologizes, saying that she'll lose this fight no matter what. Erza then tells them about the Tower of Heaven and about her past. After sharing her past, Erza tells Gray, Lucy, and Juvia that she's destined to fight Jalal. Meanwhile, Jalal's thought projection, Seagrain, is gathering votes at the Magic Council to destroy the Tower of Heaven with the Etherion. Back at the tower, Erza tells the others that Zeref was the strongest Dark Mage ever. He created horrible and destructive monsters. Lucy points out that the lullaby was one of Zeref's monsters. Erza also thinks that Deliora was one too. Lucy then asks why Erza is considered a traitor to her old friends. Erza doesn't know why, but suspects Jalal made something up. Sho then appears, hearing what actually happened 8 years ago and cannot believe that Jalal was tricking them all this time. Simon then appears, revealing that he knew all along that Jalal was lying. They all decide to work together to stop Jalal. Everybody follows Shimon in an attempt to look for Natsu and stop Erza's other friends from attacking. The company learns that they can't escape because they need to defeat Jalal and the assassins of Deathhead's Caucasus, Trinity Raven, before Jalal activates the tower that will cause the council to release the Etherion, which will destroy the tower and them along with it. After hearing what will happen, Sho traps Erza in one of his cards and runs off with her. Erza and Sho run into Ikaruga. Ikaruga claims that she can slice anything, even separate dimensions like Sho's cards. With this, she quickly defeats him. Ikaruga starts attacking Erza, who is still inside Sho's card. After a few more slices, Erza breaks out of it. All of a sudden, Erza's armor is cut into pieces, showing that she didn't dodge all of Ikaruga's attacks successfully. She then re-equips her Heaven's Wheel armor. The two girls attack each other head-on. Erza re-equips several armors, but all of them easily break by Ikaruga's sword. Erza then gets up and re-equips a Sarashi with a flame-patterned bottom hakama. Erza explains that there's nothing special about her armor. All her life she had locked her heart away in a suit of armor, and that had made her weak and afraid. Now that she wears none, she believes she can defeat Ikaruga. The two ladies charge towards each other, their swords clashing for the final time. Although Erza gets slashed, Erza's slash to Ikaruga is able to defeat her. Erza tells Sho to get everybody else out of the tower. Erza makes it to part of the tower where Jalal is. Jalal claims the game is over, and Erza asks if playing with people's lives are fun. She thinks Jalal is bluffing about the Etherion falling, but he claims that he's not, and that either way she will be a sacrifice for Zeref. The two battle, and Erza eventually pins Jalal to the ground with her sword at his neck. She then tells Jalal he failed at completing the R system because the tower has no magic to resurrect. There needs to be way more in order for the tower to activate. Trying to make her give up, he explains how his body was possessed by Zeref and how he's nothing more than a doll doing his bidding. He says he knew he couldn't finish the R system, but Zeref wouldn't stop him. He asks Erza to strike him down. She refuses and hugs Jalal as the Etherion hits the tower, completely destroying the outer structure of the tower. Surprised that she's alive after the blast, she looks around and notices there's lacrima everywhere, and that the structure is an absorption crystal. Jalal explains that the Council's Etherion provided the tower with enough power to bring Zeref back. Just then, Seagrain shows up and reveals that he and Jalal are the same person, and that he became a council member just to cast the Etherion down on the tower. They both reveal that they're the same person and that Seagrain was just a thought projection. Now that the two have morphed back together, Jalal's full magic power returns. A bind snake Jalal cast earlier stops Erza from moving. Before putting her in the lacrima to be the sacrifice for Zeref, Natsu arrives to pull Erza out. Erza tells Natsu to leave and not fight Jalal because she's afraid of the consequences that will happen to him. Natsu then punches her, causing her to faint while mentioning he'll win this fight. Enraged by how much Jalal has hurt Erza, Natsu flares up and goes to fight Jalal. Erza then wakes up to Natsu being blasted by Jalal's meteor attacks. Natsu starts destroying the tower so the resurrection can't occur. Jalal prepares another attack on Natsu, but Erza gets in front, hoping that he won't attack her. He still prepares to launch it, claiming that it doesn't matter who the sacrifice is, now that there's so much damage. He launches his attack. Opening her eyes, Erza sees that Shimon is in front of her and that he used his body as a shield to protect her. He falls to the ground, confesses his love for Erza, and then dies. Erza screams in anguish as Natsu continues his battle with Jalal. By eating the Etherion, Natsu manages to defeat Jalal, but the tower becomes unstable and is ready to blow up, which will kill anyone near it. Back in the tower, Erza carries Natsu on her back. She shortly realizes that she needs to be the sacrifice to control the magic power and stop the explosion. She then puts her body halfway in the crystal, only for Natsu to wake up and ask her what she's doing. She tells him she can't imagine a world without her friends, and if she dies saving everybody, then she has no regrets. She then offers her body to the R system so that she can control it. She blanks out completely. Erza wakes up in a dress, wondering where she is. Everything is white around her. The scene turns to her funeral. Erza realizes that she's dead and that nobody is happy. Natsu doesn't believe Erza is dead and refuses to accept it, causing a ruckus at the funeral. As everybody cries, Erza realizes that she made a mistake. She then wakes up realizing it was a dream. All of her friends run towards her and Natsu carries her towards them. He lays her in the water, to which Erza is amazed that he was able to not only find but also take her out of the vortex alive. Natsu, in tears, tells Erza not to sacrifice herself ever again. Erza promises to him to do so, and she comes to the realization that she doesn't need to die for her friends, but to live for them, because that is the only way to bring the best future. For the first time since 8 years ago, she cries tears of joy out of both eyes. Wally, Miliana, and Sho apologize to Erza, saying that they didn't want to hurt her. Erza suggests they come to Fairy Tail. Later, Lucy asks where Sho and the others went. Erza dashes out to go look for them. She then realizes that her former comrades decided to leave Erza's side, saying that they've caused too much pain for her. Erza then prepares for them the official Fairy Tail's farewell ceremony. After a few promises, she recites the rules when leaving Fairy Tail and cries goodbye to them, hoping to see them again someday. After that, Natsu, Lucy, Gray, and Erza throw a farewell bash, wishing Sho, Miliana, and Wally well as they depart, finally free and living their own lives. Battle of Fairy Tail Arc. Erza comes back to the guild to see it rebuilt and in great condition, but her happiness is interrupted when she finds that Gajeel Red Fox has joined Fairy Tail. She voices her concerns with Makarov, but as he gives her his confidence, she petitions to have Gajeel watched. Later, when a reporter from Sorcerer magazine comes to Fairy Tail to interview the members, she wears a modified version of her Heart Cruise armor. She surprises everyone when she expresses her desire to be interviewed. During the festival, Erza competes for the title of Miss Fairy Tail, changing into a beautiful dress that Lucy recognizes as Goth Lolita style in front of everyone and states that victory is hers. However, she is turned to stone, along with all the other Miss Fairy Tail contestants, by Evergreen. Natsu and Gajeel try to turn her back to normal with Natsu's flame, thinking that it would release her from the stone. She does get revived, but due to her artificial eye having the effect of Evergreen's magic, she soon realizes that even Mistogan has arrived to fight Laxus Dreyar in order to help save the guild. She then goes to town to find Laxus, but encounters Evergreen instead. She threatens Evergreen to release the other girls, but Evergreen is more interested in claiming the title for herself instead. After fighting her for some time, Erza pins her against a wall. Evergreen reveals to her she'll kill the girls if Erza doesn't strip to degrade herself. Erza responds by changing into her Heaven's Wheel armor and threatens to kill Evergreen herself if she doesn't revive the girls. And thus, Evergreen concedes and the girls are released. After her fight with Evergreen, both Erza and Natsu find Laxus and Mistogan already fighting in the cathedral. When Erza witnesses the true face of Mistogan, it turns out to resemble Jalal's completely. Not knowing it wasn't Jalal, her eyes begin to shed tears and she becomes emotionally unstable for a moment. Mistogan claims he's not Jalal, but he knows who he is, and then quickly disappears, leaving Laxus to Erza and Natsu. She recovers from the surprise though, and prepares to attack Laxus with her Lightning Empress armor, but later decides to trust Natsu to stop Laxus and goes to destroy the Thunder Palace instead to protect everyone in Magnolia. With the help of Warren Rocco, she communicates with all her comrades and they help her to destroy the Thunder Palace's Lacrimas. In the end, she manages to take out 200 Lacrimas, which are the majority of them. After Laxus is defeated, the Harvest Festival continues with the Fantasia Parade. Erza performs her swords on her float, not knowing Mistogan watches her. When Laxus leaves the guild, Erza and the rest of the guild puts up the sign he and Makarov made up, meaning they will always be watching over them. Oracion Cesar. Erza begins to try and find out about Mistogan, however she realizes Makarov knows nothing about him. Stumped, Erza wonders about Mistogan's relationship to Jalal, and why they both have the same exact face. Later, Erza and her team begin to go on a mission to hunt a mage hunter, but she becomes surprised when she hears Lucy went off to a Khalifa and took out the Naked Mummy Guild by herself. Later, Makarov reveals that an alliance of guilds has been made in order to take down one of the Dark Guilds, part of the Balam Alliance, the Oracion Seis, and that Fairy Tail is part of it. Team Natsu is chosen as Fairy Tail's representatives. They meet up with the Blue Pegasus Guild delegates, the Trimans, that are none other than Hibiki Lates, Eve Tyr, Ren Akatsuki, and to Erza's horror, Ichika Vendale Kotobuki. They also meet the delegates of Lamia's Scale Guild, Leon Vastia, and Sherry Blendy, as well as the delegates of Kate Shelter, Wendy Marvel, and Carla. As all the delegates get together, Erza follows Natsu and Gray as they run to find Oracion Seis. As the Oracion Seis finds them, Erza battles Cobra in her flight armor. However, she's bitten by his snake and she suffers from the extreme poison. As Lucy gives Erza her belt to strap on her arm, she begs for someone to cut her poisoned arm off. Leon steps forward to do this, but this is denied by her fellow Fairy Tail members and an argument erupts. However, Carla explains to them that Wendy, who was kidnapped by Brain, can help her, as her magic allows her to heal the injured. As the others leave to rescue Wendy, Lucy and Hibiki Late stay behind to take care of her. After Natsu arrives with Wendy, she treats Erza and removes the poison. When the others notice a pillar of black light in the sky, Natsu knows Jalal is there and rushes forward. In the ensuing confusion, Erza slips away, intending to find Jalal as well. Because the others are impeded in fights against the Oración Seis, Erza manages to reach Jalal first, although she's unsure of how to act towards him. To her surprise, she discovers that he's become amnesiac and is only able to remember her name. As Erza explains who he is and what he did to his comrades, Jalal breaks down in tears upon learning what kind of person he is. Suddenly, Cobra appears and attempts to take Nirvana, but Jalal reveals that he put a square of self-destruction around Nirvana to destroy it. However, he also put the spell on himself so he can end his life and free Erza from the pain he has caused her. She doesn't take this too kindly and runs up to him, grabs him, and demands that he cancel the spell and live. Moments later, Brain appears, revealing that he taught Jalal the square of self-destruction and easily cancels it before activating the second stage of Nirvana. Erza and Jalal are caught in Nirvana's skyward eruption as she holds onto Jalal with one hand. She pulls him up, saying that he should live on to see the future as Fairy Tail members do with their connection of hope. Later, Midnight appears before her and quickly defeats Jalal, revealing his reflector magic to her. She tries her best to fight him, but all her attacks are reflected, and her armor becomes reflected to confine her. As Midnight tortures Jalal with the truth of his deeds, Erza reassures Jalal that she believes there's still good in him, and re-equips to her robe of Yuen, readying herself for round 2 against Midnight. Erza reveals all 3 of Midnight's weaknesses, which are not being able to reflect 2 things at once, her not being able to work on humans, and Erza's current armor being made out of rubber. Midnight says that at midnight, his refracting gets to his peak as he transforms into a giant monster. He creates a giant explosion and stabs Jalal and Erza. He's then successfully slashed and defeated by Erza as she reveals his transformation was all just an illusion. Afterwards, she manages to get into contact with the others through Hibiki's telepathy, only to learn that Nirvana is controlled by 6 different Lacrima crystals. After the discussion and planning, Hibiki implants a map to guide them towards the location of each Lacrima crystal. Erza says that she'll handle Lacrima number 5. When Jalal is about to say he'll destroy the 6th Lacrima, she immediately interrupts him. She whispers to him that Natsu still doesn't know his relation towards the mission and might mistake him as an enemy. When Erza finishes, Natsu answers that he seemed to have heard a familiar voice, but Hibiki's connection is then lost. Erza arrives in front of the 5th Lacrima, waiting for the appointed time to arrive and destroy it. After Natsu's victory over Zero, the rest of the mages, including Erza, manage to destroy all 6 Lacrima crystals, destroying Nirvana. Everyone rejoices as they're reunited. Erza says that she'll support Jalal and he doesn't need to care about his memories. At this moment, they stare at each other, only for the new Magic Council to interrupt and arrest Hot Eye and Jalal for their past criminal acts. As Jalal willingly gives himself up to the council, Lahar warns him that this will probably be the last time he ever sees them again, for he will either be given the death sentence or life imprisonment. Suddenly, an angered Natsu starts to fight against the council, trying to bring Jalal back. This causes every other mage to fight for Jalal as well, except for Erza, who can only tremble in anger and watch the chaos. Erza decides to stop the commotion once and for all, and lets the council take Jalal away. Jalal looks back at her in relief, but not before he mentions her scarlet hair, implying that he remembers the time he chose her last name Scarlet. They say their final farewells, and as Jalal is taken away, everyone looks on sadly. Erza later sits alone, crying for the loss of her friend as she remembers when she and Jalal were together as kids, and him choosing her last name based on her hair color. Back at Kate's shelter, Rubal reveals to Allied forces that Wendy's whole guild was just an illusion he made after she was left in his care. Wendy, now alone, is comforted by Erza and invited to join Fairy Tail. Edolas arc. After the return of Gildart's Clive, he says to Natsu he has something to tell him, while Erza urges Natsu and Lucy not to take on the 100-year quest that Gildart's had recently failed. Later, Erza comments on Biska and Alzak getting along well. Erza tells them to treasure these memories so they will not regret them later. Makarov then calls Erza over, telling her about his choice to pass the 100-year quest to another guild, to which she agrees. Later, the Anima sucks up Fairy Tail and all of Magnolia into Edolas, including Erza. However, Gajeel releases her and Gray from the Lacrima. With Mystagon's help, Mystagon then sends them to Edolas with X-Balls that allow Earthland people to use magic freely in Edolas. When Erza Nightwalker is about to kill Happy, Erza and Gray bash some of the Edolas guards and show up, ready to attack and declare Erza Nightwalker to be an enemy of Fairy Tail. Seeing that her counterpart is about to strike Gray, Erza quickly blocks her counterpart's spear with her sword and the clash of their weapons. Realizing that her group can't proceed any further than they've already have with Nightwalker hot on their tails, Scarlet orders her friends to carry on without her. As the two Erzas fight, Nightwalker explains her magic item, the 10 Commandments. Scarlet notices how her counterpart's magic is a lot like hers. Erza is successful in defeating her counterpart and takes on her guise as Nightwalker afterwards. Erza, still in disguise, catches up with Natsu and Gray and captures them. She drags them to the Dragon Chain Cannon Room, commenting on how she can see eternal magic coming. She then orders Gray to activate the cannon aiming towards the island with the threat that she would kill Natsu if he didn't comply. Right at the crucial moment, however, Erza Scarlet suddenly shouts at Natsu to fight before quickly holding her sword at Faust's throat, revealing her true identity to everyone else and that the entire plan to be a ruse. She then tells the soldiers to move the coordinates to fire at the Lacrima, or she will kill the king. However, the real Erza Nightwalker vaults over the wall of the control room and frees Faust, which leads to the release of Cannon on the Lacrima Island. Just then, an ally of theirs, Coco, arrives on her legion, helping them all escape. They then set flight towards the Lacrima Island to save Magnolia. She then helps everyone to push back the Lacrima Island, enough for Mystagon to send the giant Lacrima back to Earthland. Erza's counterpart shoots Panther Lily, declaring the battle isn't over yet. When the Dorma Anim shows up, Natsu tells her that he, along with Gajeel and Wendy, would take care of Faust, while she and her group should protect the Exceeds. However, as they try to catch up, Nightwalker ambushes the legion that they're on. While Lucy, Gray, and Coco fall, Erza merely chains onto another legion and clashes with her counterpart once more, with both of them declaring that there's only room for one Erza and the other one must perish. The second round starts off with each Erza fighting ferociously, as Scarlet uses several different armors and Nightwalker changes her spear's forms. Eventually, Erza comments on how they're both evenly matched, but then Nightwalker decides at that moment to use her trump card, Ravelt. Erza then requips into the Armadura Fairy armor. As the two Erzas clash, they create an explosion large enough to shatter the entire island, and in the process, Erza's armor is destroyed along with Nightwalker's spear. However, even though they both have already run out of magic, they have a fist fight, while debating about whether it's wrong to extort magic from Extalia. Erza finally manages to knock some sense into Nightwalker, telling her that they can still survive without magic and that it can be overcome. She then tells Nightwalker that they are the same, and as Erza herself has the same evil qualities and weaknesses in Nightwalker, Nightwalker herself has the same compassionate heart as Erza. The falling island then crashes into the ground, and both Erzas no longer have the strength to move. Nightwalker then admits defeat, but Erza denies this, saying that there's no such thing, seeing as they're the same person. With the two Erza's pieces made, the reverse anima begins to take Scarlet back to Earthland. The two Erzas bid one final farewell. After returning to Earthland, she's surprised to see the Exceeds have arrived in Earthland, and after hearing about their story, no one has grudges against them. The Exceeds decide to find all the eggs they sent to Earthland and bid a final farewell to Fairy Tail. However, when the Exceeds leave, Erza, along with Gray and Natsu, are surprised when Panther Lily drags out the captured Lysana. However, Lysana reveals that she was never dead, but that she was merely transported to Edolas by the anima. And she's in fact the Lysana everyone knows. Erza, alongside Natsu and the others, help Lysana to return to her siblings. Tenro Island Arc. Back at Fairy Tail, everybody's acting hyper again. Panther Lily tells Erza that it's comforting to see a familiar face like hers, even though she's not the Erza he knew. Later, Erza is by Makarov's side for the announcing of the S-Class Mage promotion trial. Gajeel is not elected to participate as Erza claims it's too soon for the guild to trust him yet. After the rules are explained, it's revealed that Erza will be participating along with Mirajane and Gildarts. Their main role in the trial is to attempt to hinder the selected teams in some way. After the participants get to Tenro Island, Makarov tells them that there will be 8 paths, and of them, 7 will result in battles. She waits in Path D and battles both Juvia and Lysana. Despite the valiant fight, Erza easily manages to defeat them. After the first part of the exam is over, she, along with Juvia, Lysana, and Mirajane, all rest at the camp on the island. She questions why Mest and Wendy aren't at the base, which sends her and Juvia out to look for them. Later, Erza and Juvia both find an injured Levi McGarden. Erza, with Juvia and Levi, go to help Gajeel to find he successfully beat Kawazu and Yomazu, members of a dark guild, Grimoire Heart. While they check up on Gajeel's condition, Yomazu announces that the 7th kin of Purgatory are coming, the Aces of Grimoire Heart. Erza immediately announces that the exam is now on hold and sends a warning flare to the rest of the guild members present on Tenro Island. Erza goes over to Yomazu and asks what their goals are. He then reveals they're here for the Black Mage Zeref. He tells them that Zeref lived 400 years ago and has since been in a slumbering state. When the Grimoire Heart Guild arrives on the island, members surround Juvia and Erza, and they prepare to fight them. They easily defeat all the members in their immediate vicinity, but are then confronted by Meredy. Erza warns Juvia not to underestimate her just because she's a kid, saying that she can sense a strange magic from the girl. In her battle with Juvia against Meredy, Meredy uses Magilti's Sodom, which creates magic swords that are sent flying towards her and Juvia. The attack manages to pierce Juvia's water body, which causes Erza to question what type of magic it is. As the battle continues, Meredy goes on to explain her rankings for people to kill,